So, welcome all. Welcome to our Acting for Water webinar organized by Web2Learn. My name is Stefania Economou, and together with my dear colleagues Katerina Zourou, our Managing Director, and Mariana Ziku, our dear colleague, we are very happy to host this webinar, which is about science communication and activism, in particular focusing on multi-stakeholder engagement to address water-related challenges. Now, a few words about our team. We are an R&D company based in Greece, innovating for over 10 years in the fields of citizen science. We develop, we design and implement citizen science projects in an interdisciplinary fields from social sciences to natural sciences. We are a team of 8 dedicated members and we are expanding our expertise in 4 areas, that of professional training, citizen and open science, and social innovation. Of course, we're very active in EU projects and we are currently working on 16 ones, and we have reached over 3,000 end users and learners throughout these 10 years. Now, thanks again for joining this webinar, which has its scope to encourage you to critically think of how we can move beyond traditional science communication to embrace, to support and foster what we call citizen-driven advocacy, citizen science and citizen activism, this time with a focus on water scarcity. And by doing so, we also encourage you to reflect on the role of the various stakeholder groups. You know, in the projects, we usually have public entities, the private sector engaged. So what is the correlation and the interconnections between those groups? How we can best join forces together to reach our goal. Overall, about the plan of the webinar, you will listen to a brief introduction from my side about the Acting for Water project. Then I will be very happy to give the floor to Sasha to present the Great UK Water Blitz initiative. And of course, I will be very proud and happy to present together with my colleague Mariana Ziku the data visualizations and analysis we did for the Acting for Water project. So stay focused and stay tuned for more things to come in the next minutes. Now, as I said, we're very happy and proud to have together with us today Dr. Sasha Wood, Director of Science and Policy at Earthwatch, and of course, my dear colleague Mariana Ziku, an esteemed and talented research collaborator for many years at Web2Learn. So the reason we're here is the Acting for Water project, and this is a project about water scarcity, and it's more than just using advanced technologies to address this challenge. The idea behind the project is that we combine business, academia, and society cooperation and integrating citizen science in order to tackle in a sustainable and long-term way water scarcity. Now, how we do that, how we achieve the goal? Well, we develop educational resources at first, and we are very happy to say and to share with you that we have ongoing lecture series about water scarcity and advanced technologies and how all these things come together nicely in joint collaborations. And after having forged the knowledge and skills between people in the project, we will move on now with the implementation of student-led citizen science mini projects. So stay tuned because the project will have so much news in the coming months. Of course, you can find more about the project in its official website. And the project is coordinated by NHL Stenden. Now, at this moment, I would like to launch the first poll of this webinar, and I will kindly ask Katerina to launch it. So people, please choose your answer. Are you directly or indirectly affected by water scarcity? We have 3 options, yes, no, perhaps someone is not sure about that. So give you a minute to think of it. Okay. Yes, I think we have 18 answers. I think I can end now the poll and see how close results are. I'm sharing the results now. Okay, so 44% of people say they're not directly or indirectly affected, but very closely, the 39% says yes, while 17% is not sure. So let's sit together about these initiatives for water scarcity and see how we are in fact affected by water scarcity, perhaps even more than we imagine. Thank you again for sharing these insights. And then I'm very happy to present you Dr. Sasha Woods. A few words about Sasha before I give her the floor. So Sasha Woods has a diverse background with a bachelor's degree in natural sciences from the University of Birmingham, a master's degree in reproductive developmental biology from Imperial College London, and a PhD in medicine from the University of Bristol. Recognizing the urgent need to address climate change and biodiversity loss, Sasha transitioned her focus to social environmental science. She now leads the science and policy team at Earthwatch, where she ensures the organization's work is scientifically rigorous and solution-oriented. And before giving the floor to Sasha, time for the second poll. And now I will also give the opportunity to Sasha to comment the results. So let's see the second poll. And here the question is, have you ever been involved in any water-related action? Let's give you a minute to. Okay, many answers coming. Okay, so I think I will stop the poll and share the results. Yeah. So Sasha, I see many people have indeed joined such actions. What's your feeling about it?
Well, I'm really pleased that 2/3 of people have been involved, and maybe through this webinar we can get that final third taking more action moving forwards.
Thank you, Sasha. Indeed, that's the spirit and that's the goal. The floor over to you, and thanks again for being here today with us.
Thank you very much for the very kind introduction. And I have to apologise in advance that I couldn't get my slides working, so please forgive the next slide, please, element of the talk, which we can do straight away to the first slides, please, Stefania.
Sure.
Yeah, so as we've covered, I'm going to be discussing how we move beyond traditional communication to really embrace citizen-driven science, advocacy, and activism, and the various roles that different stakeholders can play in this. And I'll be doing so in the context of some of Earthwatch Europe's citizen science work. Next slide, please. So Earthwatch Europe is an environmental charity with science at its heart. We're all about connecting people to nature and providing them with the tools that they need to fight for the planet. And citizen science is one such tool that we use to do this. It's the active involvement of non-scientists in scientific research. And I know many of you know this. I see some familiar names among our participants, but just to highlight that this can be anything from defining the research question to developing the methods, collecting and analysing data, and also communicating the results of studies to other people. And it incorporates elements of engagement, so awareness raising, and in an environmental context, nature connection, as well as education, enhancing knowledge and developing skills, and also empowerment. And this is where we have this advocacy and action element of citizen science. And so I'm going to talk about it in the application of water pollution investigation, which of course is intrinsically linked to water scarcity. There's no point having lots of water if it's so polluted you can't use it or drink it. Next slide, please. So the Great UK Water Blitz is a 4-day campaign that Earthwatch ran twice last year, where we had volunteers go out and assess water quality in their local freshwater bodies, so rivers, lakes, streams, across the whole of the UK. In June, we had just over 2,500 people taking over 1,300 measurements. And in September, we almost doubled this to 4,500 citizen scientists assessing 2,300 sites. And in both campaigns, water quality was shown to be fairly poor. 75% of sites in June and 61% of sites in September were of poor quality. So how were we assessing this? Next slide, please, Stefania. Thanks. So citizen scientists were looking at concentrations of two nutrients, this nitrate and phosphate, using our Freshwater Watch kits. Freshwater Watch is a global citizen science project which has been running for over a decade, and it consists of these easy to use kits to determine nitrate and phosphate concentration by a colour change in a tube. Now, these nutrients are usually present at low concentrations in fresh water, but at high concentrations, they cause this process of eutrophication. So large algal blooms, increased levels of bacteria, lowered concentrations of oxygen in the water, and plant and animal death. So they're found in both agricultural runoff and in sewage. And so they're indicators of other polluting chemicals being in the water, and also good indicators of water quality and also ecological health. And importantly, nitrate and phosphate are covered by several national, EU and global policies, such as the Water Framework Directive and the Sustainable Development Goals. So they align with policy, and this is fairly important in a mass participation citizen science project. So what did this citizen-driven science uncover? Next slide, please, Stefania. So we split water quality into acceptable, which is the blue of the bar, and unacceptable, which is the red. So your acceptable water quality has low levels of nitrate and phosphate, and unacceptable is the medium to high levels. And we indicated the number of data sets collected with these white circles that you can see on the bar. And so, for example, we found that second only to ditches, rivers have the worst water quality in the UK, so much worse than our lakes and ponds. And of the 4 countries that make up the United Kingdom, England has very much the worst water quality. And you can see from the bar on the right that over 1,000 people, over 1,000 data sets were collected to demonstrate this. Next slide, please. So thanks to the mass participation of citizen scientists, we were able to look at water quality by river basin district, which is how rivers are managed in the UK. Several river basins make up a river basin district. And so unsurprisingly, if you know anything about the water in the UK, the Thames River Basin District, which includes London, has some of the worst water quality in England. And we showed this through 455 data points, that 80% of the water assessed in the Thames River Basin District has poor water quality. Next slide, please. And again, thanks to so many people taking part in the campaign, we were able to dig even deeper and investigate specific river basins. So, for example, in London, 78% of water tested is of poor quality, and that comes through 62 data points. What we can also see through graphs like this is roughly how many people are taking part. Our citizen scientists tended to assess this assess water quality in pairs. So if you have 50 data sets, you likely had about 100 people taking part. And so you can see that even though the Thames has very poor water quality, actually you have lots of people assessing that. So fairly good nature connection and awareness of the issue in the Thames region. Next slide, please. So a little bit on the various roles that stakeholders can play in citizen-driven science. We partnered with academia to build on this science to further explore what else is polluting our fresh water. So we collaborated with Imperial College London to investigate additional chemical pollution using a very complicated method called liquid chromatography mass spectrometry. And as you can see in the table, 100% of samples that were collected by our citizen scientists and sent over to Imperial had additional chemical pollution in the form of caffeine. And in 80% of samples, caffeine was at a concentration high enough that it could cause some risk to aquatic life. And I just want to highlight there nicotine, which was found at concentrations that could pose some risk to aquatic life in 7% of samples, because this finding was important, and I'll come back to it a little bit later. Next slide, please. By partnering with other NGOs, we were able to reach a wider audience of participants. So almost 40% of our participants had no involvement in the environment prior to the Blitz, indicating that engagement element of citizen-driven science is coming into play here. And 50% improved their understanding of water quality issues, demonstrating the importance of education. And 18% reported a positive shift in their relationship with nature, so empowered to make positive behaviour changes on the back of our water blitz. Next slide, please. Another stakeholder that we engaged was government. So this really helped us to amplify our citizen-driven advocacy. So as I mentioned, nitrate and phosphate concentrations are part of several policies, and so of interest to both local and national government. And by engaging with policymakers prior to the Blitz, and updating them with the results as they came in and before the report was made public, we were able to bring them on in a really positive way. And so you can see here a quote from the Deputy Director for Water Analysis and Reporting for the Environment Agency, saying something very positive about the work in the Guardian newspaper. So just that the Environment Agency values the contribution of citizen science and welcomed the Water Blitz to complement the Environment Agency's own research and monitoring. And the results of the Blitz have begun to influence policy. As I said, nicotine was found at concentrations that could pose some risk to aquatic life in 7% of samples. And because of this, the Environment Agency have added nicotine to their list of chemicals of emerging concern. Next slide, please. And in our report that we published following the Blitz, we called for 5 key areas to be addressed by government around enforcing the law, making pollution unprofitable. Our waters are meant to be protected by a number of companies that are not doing a very good job of that. Focusing targets on our smaller, more vulnerable streams, embracing nature-based solutions such as wetlands, and of course, engaging in empowering communities to continue monitoring and advocating for their fresh water. Next slide, please. So some of the key lessons learned from the Blitz that could be helpful in other water projects, other contexts. In terms of the science, for mass participation, you need mass communication. And so social media was key for recruiting people, engaging them with the topic, educating them on how to use the kits and what it means, and getting the data that we were able to over that 4-day period. Clear instructions and simple kits for citizen scientists are a must, and I know lots of people here know that, but the clearer the better, really, and then more and more people are able to take part. But also it's important that your methods and your data analysis are scientifically robust. So we know that our Freshwater Watch kits are highly accurate and reliable compared to lab tests. And what this means is that you are better able to engage certainly policymakers with the data, but also getting other academic institutions involved. We try to make our reports informative, but also easy to understand, open access, and all the data is also downloadable. And we try to keep the turnaround to about a month, and it just means that the citizen scientists that have given you their time and provided this data are given back to in a timely manner. And we also try to highlight the groups and individuals that have gone above and beyond to make the report more personal. And in terms of advocacy, the science needs to relate to policy. So as I said, nitrates and phosphates are included in several monitoring frameworks. So we knew that this information would be important to policymakers. And so it's an easy way in to then maintain a communication. And as I say, they need to be frequently engaged and updated with the results if you want there to be any kind of real policy change. And again, the use of a simple open access report empowers citizens to advocate using the science that they generated and remain engaged with the project if it's ongoing. Next slide, please. So I have to end with this message that Earthwatch Europe really believes in the power of data for change. We believe in the power of citizen-driven science for collecting meaningful data that can influence environmental policy and transform the future of our fresh waters. We're running this Great UK Water Blitz campaign again in April and September, and I promised Katerina that I would mention I'm running the London Marathon in April to raise money for that Water Blitz. She assures me that that is activism in action, so I'm saying it to appease her. So I hope that this talk has given you a bit of a taster on how we might move beyond traditional science communication to really embrace citizen-driven science and advocacy, and how academia, NGOs and government can play a role in this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sasha. I'm sure it certainly did. And I can see also many questions coming in the chat. Thank you for sharing key insights and experiences from the Water Blitz UK experience. Now, I think it's best to just deliver and address these two questions about the Water Blitz instead of leaving it for the QA session, because I think it's more relevant if I can ask Sasha to briefly comment on the question, these two questions on the chat. Like the first one is from Martin.
Oh yeah, so were these measurements all year round or seasonal? So the Great UK Water Blitz was over 4 days in June and 4 days in September. But our Fresh Water Watch project engages communities to take regular measurements at monthly intervals. So Fresh Water Watch as a whole is all year round, and the Water Blitz is intentionally spring/summer and autumn to get that seasonal variation. And the other one was from Jacqueline, right? Did 4,000 people receive kits and training? Yes, they did receive kits and training. We have instructional videos on the website and also very simple paper instructions that were sent with the kits. It is a logistical challenge. The first time we did it in June, we packaged all the envelopes ourselves in-house. And the second time we did it, we thankfully got a mailing company to do that bit for us. But yes, I mean, a logistical nightmare.
Thank you, Sasha. Of course, more questions are welcome. We will have a QA session at the end. So I need to move forward a little bit with the continuation of the webinar, but keep asking questions and we'll get back to them in a few minutes. Thank you again, Sasha, for enlightening us and giving us so much inspiration, also with your marathon, and thank you for mentioning it, because we are moving from science communication to civic engagement and activism. And I'm more than proud now to present our work we did for the Acting for Water project, and together with my dear colleagues, Katerina, Zourou and Mariana Ziku. And it's about a study we did to explore civic engagement actions addressing water scarcity. Now, what we actually do. We aim to do a data analysis of existing civic engagement initiatives that address water scarcity. But it's more than just a collection of what is happening right now in the world about citizen engagement and water scarcity. It's more than that in the sense that we aim to explore and bring to the fore specific dimensions of these actions. And when talking about dimensions, I refer particularly to the levels of citizen participation. And here we based our research in established typologies that have identified specific citizen participation levels. You see 4 here. Another dimension is that of multi-stakeholder collaboration models. So we aim to understand how these 3 actors, academia, business, and society, join forces in these initiatives, if they do and how they do. Next dimension is the technology type. So we also were interested to understand how technology has been used by these initiatives to map, monitor, and tackle water scarcity. You see here some of the technologies present in the inventory. Again, we focused on water resources, so we needed to specify which ones. And as you see, we identified surface water, rainwater, groundwater, and condensation. And of course, we aimed to understand how these actions take shape. So what is the format of these actions? So we have a typology of actions to understand what is the best way people choose to engage for water scarcity. What is the format? Now, having said that, all of these dimensions form part of our methodology. So we carry out a data collection based on these 20 categorization fields. Of course, for our criteria, we were based in established typologies. For example, when it comes to citizen participation, we followed CIRC and colleagues categorization, but also we applied project-specific classification schemes, like the one with the multi-stakeholder collaboration models. Overall, we identified 24 initiatives and categorized them. From November to December 2022, project partners were engaged in identifying and collecting such initiatives. Our Web2Learn team screened the initiatives and transformed them into machine actionable formats. Moreover, what we also added to this collection of initiatives is the geographical mapping. And as you will see shortly from Mariana Ziku, my colleague, in the data visualizations, we also were interested to showcase this geographical widespread of all these initiatives and their connections worldwide. We also showcase data aggregated, and we also apply this cross-category filtering. So you will see how all these categories and criteria are combined together in each citizen science initiative and citizen-driven initiative. But I will say no more, and I will give the floor to my dear colleague, Mariana Ziku. And before giving her the floor, let me introduce you to Mariana. So Mariana works in the field of culture and information science. She's a talented research collaborator at Web2Learn, where she applies her skills in data analytics, digital methods, and technologies at the intersection of humanities and other disciplines. Mariana is currently pursuing a PhD in the Intelligent Interaction Research Group at the University of the Aegean, and she holds a bachelor's degree in art sciences and a master's degree in curation and history at the University of Ioannina, as well as a Master of Science in Digital Humanities from the KU Leuven University. What more to say about our dear Mariana? Mariana, I will stop screen sharing and give you the floor to showcase us the great data visualizations you did from the project. Mariana, the floor over to you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Stefania, for the introduction. And thank you, Katerina, for the ideation of all the projects and the visualizations. And of course, Sasha, for the intriguing and very inspiring presentation. So let's try to go to the data analysis and visualizations, which will allow us to gain insights into the 24 selected actions of civic engagement for addressing water scarcity. So we try to categorize our visual analysis into three perspectives: map-based view, aggregated view, and cross-data analysis view. Well, we aim to, with those categorizations, we aim to reveal multiple aspects of the data, enabling a better understanding. First, the map-based view helps to contextualize data in space and into a geographic context. We see the distribution of the civic engagement actions based in countries and several key dimensions. Second, the aggregated view summarizes the data for macro level insights. And this second category helps us move from more location-based insights to a broader aggregated view that allows us maybe to recognize certain trends. However, we have a limited quantity of data. Anyway, by grouping the data points, we can detect patterns in frequency and volume. And third comes the cross data analysis, which lets us explore relationships between variables. And with this, we bring together multiple dimensions of data, still looking at independent factors, but investigating how these different factors influence one another possibly. So these visualizations allow us to uncover possible correlations and dependencies. For example, what technologies are mostly used in each water category that has been tackled. So let's delve into them. We have the maps, which provide the spatial awareness, and we try to see here the map. And of course, it's a bigger map here. We can load it again and see how hovering over the map lets us explore details and insights through the interactive toolkit. The deeper hues indicate a higher number of projects. We can see here, for example, that most initiatives, let's also zoom in to have a better look. Most initiatives that have been collected come from Spain and from Greece. And we see some actions, for example, here already, Hydrousa span among more than one countries. So maybe we can have a look how these are connected. Here we can see the lines, for example, and we can see which projects connect through the lines, which projects connect through different countries. And here we can see the 4 levels of citizen participation. For example, it's color-coded through this legend. We see that most collaborative actions are dispersed here, and there are also a few co-created ones. We can see them based in color-coded blue. And let's move down to the public governance key dimension in water management actions. They are color-coded in red and blue. We can have a look over the name of the public governance authority as well. And of course, also a few insights into the categorization of technologies that have been used. We see quite a few utilizing AI-related technologies, as we see here from the color coding. Of course, the maps give us a strong spatial understanding, but it doesn't always highlight overall patterns and trends. For that, we turned to aggregated visualizations, which can summarize better key insights at the macro level. So the water management actions are categorized here based on the 4 levels of citizen participation, following the typology of citizen participation by Cirque et al. And here we reveal the most prevalent category of collaborative-based citizen participation, indeed. Let's move on because we have to be also quick on time to see also the collaborative models. We see here that the most prevalent category is a threefold: academia, business, society. Further on, we move and we see the categorization and types of action. We see here that the most prevalent one is citizen science. This shows this reflects on the forms of collaboration among the stakeholder groups, including academia, society, and business. And there are of course, more of these visualizations, but let's jump quickly into the combined view as well, just to have a quick insight. So here we can see a cross-category analysis of the key dimensions of cooperation models, which are in the vertical column, and the water resource types color-coded. We may see some patterns evolving here if we look closely and we try to combine data. For example, we see that most academia, business society, they are occupied with groundwater initiatives, while academia society mostly cover surface water and condensation probably and rainwater. So we see already some trends here. Here we can see a combined view of two categories classifying water management initiatives and the categories of cooperation models. We see very easily which are the prevalent categories here. For example, most projects are based on the academia society model and the combined view of collaborative, whereas of course we said that academia business society before in the aggregated view were the most prevalent one, but as we see they are more they're dichotomized between usually contributor or collaborative initiatives. And of course, we can see other trends as well here, based on this cross-category analysis of water categories and types of technology. This is also very interesting. You can see, for example, that most categories are based on monitoring, like most technology categories based on monitoring and watching surface water in particular. And very interesting combination, data combination and analysis is here also. These related to the water categories that we see here in the legend. Of course, we can select all of them, and we can also deselect them and have a very specific view in each one of them. But let's again select all of them and try to see how these cross-category analysis of water categories and triggers of action are actually here dispersed. And we see, for example, there are triggers of actions that triggered the action of creating the water management initiative. So we see here, for example, the ancestral knowledge transferability as a trigger of action, or climate change and conservation. So it's interesting to dig deeper into that. And see the different cross-data combinations. And of course, ending this visualization, we can have the visualizations, we can have insights into the water management actions projects and click through their links to the websites and and learn a little bit more. So that was it, and I hope I'm within time, and I'm handing over again to Stefania. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mariana. You did an absolutely stunning work together with Katerina, Zourou. These visualizations are super, super important and interesting, also available open access. And as you said, there is so much to discover and explore in terms of the deeper dimensions following these civic engagement actions. Thank you again also for joining us from Canada that early. You were great on time. And before moving on for the final part of the presentation, I would like to ask Katerina to launch the third poll and ask you all to make your choice. So the question is about multi-stakeholder engagement and how important you think this multi-stakeholder engagement is in actions for water scarcity. So people, do you think we need that kind of engagement, of collaboration, or not at all, or perhaps? Let's give a minute to people to 17 replies. Okay. I'm happy to see that, okay, I will end the poll now and share the results. So great. Yeah. So I'm happy to see that most of you that chose to reply here is you consider multi-stakeholder engagement very important or extremely important for water scarcity action. And indeed, that makes me smile and see that there is a good understanding of the need to engage more and more people, more and more actors in the field to achieve long-term sustainable results. And having said that, there is no we would like to focus on these dimensions that we deem very crucial for sustainability of such actions. And what I brought today with you is 2 examples of the 24 initiatives that we categorized and analyzed in the data visualization. So here you see Water in the Desert, which is the world's largest fall collection project right now in Africa. And here you can see that in this project, we have a multitude of stakeholders engaged from universities and businesses and civil society organizations, of course, together with local communities. But the essence here is not that just that they collaborate with each other, it's the potential they have built and created out of this collaboration. So in that project, they do not only help local communities to collect and make water from fall collection, but they have also established research centers, they have created educational programs for the local communities. They keep supporting each other by providing funding, for example, from private entities, but also reaching out to wider communities, disseminating about the project. So we see a multitude and a variety of roles and joint actions from all the 3 actors. And what I would like to turn your attention on here again is the role of governance, of public authorities, of ministries. This is crucial to make any project and initiative sustainable in the long term. Governance has a role to play about expanding community acceptance, because when people see that the local authorities, the national authorities embrace the project, embrace and hear their voices and take into account the data collected and take into account what they actually do on the ground, they have trust in the process, they have trust in the actors. And of course, we need public authorities because we need to ensure that all these processes and projects are sustainable in the long term. So also public funding, public support in any case is crucial, as you see also in the graph from a paper that clearly describes and very detailedly describes the Water in the Desert initiative. It's really important to highlight this governance role here. And finally, the second initiative, again in Africa, this time in the Horn of Africa, the Down for Earth project, which this time it aims to tackle water scarcity by developing water-centered climate services. Again, in that project, you see how a multitude of actors collaborate with each other. We have many universities in Africa and Europe as well. We have businesses, and you see here the role also of communication actors like BBC or data analytics companies like Climate Analytics. So you see various roles from the private sector as well. And of course, civil society, you have ActionAid, but also organizations and departments of the UN involved in making this project sustainable and relevant and really forward-looking for the communities there. And again, it's interesting to see how this project involves and adopts a policy strand. So it's really focusing also to engage policymakers and decision makers in the process. So what they're actually trying to do is all these nice activities and actions and networks they're trying to build there and services, that they also be reflected in culturally sensitive policy frameworks in these African countries. And they also collaborate with policymakers to test future scenarios and adopt them in new policies. So again, all these initiatives are very important, but they need also to have a key role and presence in policymaking frameworks and directions and directives from governance. Now, summing up this presentation, of course, I think it's evident also from all these presentations and ideas shared so far that there is a dynamic correlation between science communication and activism. It's not that difficult to move from one to another, but the ways we arrive there may vary. of course, about citizen engagement and how important it is and how we achieve citizen engagement and activism in practice. What we have all observed is that we need to adopt more co-creation and co-design approaches in the actions. So this is a way to get the people involved, to enhance their motivation, and then build trust with the communities and encourage them to be part of the project. Of course, you need to have a shared vision. So you need to build a project from scratch that is also really inspiring and really talking to the reality of the people on the ground, of its various stakeholder groups engaged. And of course, never forget, when possible, to engage governance, to engage public authorities. We know it's actually very difficult at some contexts, but when it's really working, it's important because it can transform the citizen science action in sustainable policy and is something that stays and is built further in the community. And having said that, I think we're also right and good in time because we have exactly great 10 minutes for the QA session. That's amazing. And just, I know, I'm sure there will be more questions on the chat, but also to trigger discussion, we have present here 2 questions, and I will start with the first one. And I will need to say that Katerina Zourou really was very good at identifying the question because it's a really tricky one. So people feel free to comment on the chat or raise your hand and share your views on that. So the first one is about multi-stakeholder engagement. So we talk a lot about that during this webinar, but how you see this kind of engagement? Do you perceive it as a top-down methodology, or you see it as a bottom-up emergency, a necessity coming up from grassroots communities and action? So what's your view on multi-stakeholder engagement? Let's give some moments for people to think. And I'm also looking at the chat now because I think I also... Okay. I see also a question about the UK Water Bleach initiative that was shared earlier on. I would ask Sasha to answer that. I will read the question and then give more time for people to think of the first one here. So Sasha, the question from Christina is, did you reward the participants? How did you manage to reach such an amazing number of people? Was it difficult to gain commitment from so many individuals? That's a nice question. Thank you, Christina.
Yeah, I put something in the chat about it. I think beyond the report that we tried to return to them within the month, highlighting the individuals that have taken part on social media so that they get some recognition. We, of course, thanked our participants in the report. But it was not so difficult to engage them for a one-off blitz. It's obviously much harder to engage communities for regular testing. So I think blitzes lend themselves to mass participation because it's fairly easy to do as a one-off.
Thank you, Sasha. And I see a question from Sahid also about multi-stakeholder engagement now. So Sahid says that in cases where different stakeholders like government, private sector and communities have conflicting priorities in water management, which is true often, what strategies have proven effective in aligning their interest towards sustainable solutions like NBS? That's good question. Who would like to go first? I think... So Sasha,
I can say
from your experience.
Yeah, I think if you're trying to align the private sector to anything, you have to highlight the economic impact of what you're trying to do. I think for communities, it's fairly easy to get them excited about environmental and societal impacts. Government, they're supposed to represent the people, so I think they should also have communities and their wishes in mind. But for the private sector, I think you really have to emphasize the economic advantages of moving towards sustainable solutions. And there are economic advantages of things like implementing wetlands. You just have to make it very obvious to them where they can save or make money.
I see, Sasha. Thank you for jumping in that. Is there anyone who would like to make a comment? I would also argue, just to give you some time to perhaps reflect on that. Also, I think what is also important is to realize that even though sometimes in the project we want the most stakeholders to collaborate and be involved, and we want everyone to be part of it, we need to realize soon enough that it's not possible due to conflicting priorities and interests that sometimes are within the game. What is important from the side of people who really initiate and organize the whole thing is, from my side, also to communicate what are the goals and the needs and the way we are moving forward to everyone. So what we usually say in Citizen Science Project is like, be open and transparent to the local communities about what you're doing. And we need to be transparent also to other stakeholders. So, and also this will allow us to engage with the ones who are really interested, not the ones who have different agendas to pursue. But let's see also another comment for Christina. Yeah, she would like to say that this is a bottom-up initiative, but from my perspective, multi-stakeholder in practice, it often follows a top-down methodology. After all, who initiates these processes? Typically, they are led by institutions, governments, or organizations with decision-making power. Yeah, I can see this voice, and I can also see from, I think, our experiences that there are also, this is also true. Of course, there are also community driven and community initiatives, starting from grassroots groups of people with little organization, but in multi-stakeholder engagement, there is this power relationships again that it's tricky to control and to. But Katerina, let's hear from you.
Thank you for your comment, Christina. I would like to, we have here Martin. Martin represents NHL, who is the coordinator. Martin, happy to have you, and thank you for your expert views on the data sets that Mariana presented today. Your views on science communication activism with regard to water scarcity.
Hi, Katerina. You're putting me on the spot here, I see.
With love and care.
I think in choosing between top down or bottom up, I think it really depends on the nature of the project you intend to do. I think some problems are more easily solved bottom up, and some maybe more abstract water scarcity related problems are more suitable coming from governments or other top-down top-down methodology. So I would say it's not either or. It really depends.
Thank you, Martin and Katerina. And now I think since minutes and time is passing, let's also focus on the second question, which I think is also very interesting and inspiring and tricky. A tricky one. So it's about science communication and activism, how the two are correlated or related at all. So what kind of relationships you think these two have? We usually refer to science communication as something that is not about activism, or you see it as more of a first step to reach activism. So how do you see these two combine or working together or not? I think, for example, that from our point of view, science communication should also inspire people to move on, to take action, to do something with the knowledge shared, with all this scientific knowledge shared by the expert team or the researchers. So it's really important from our side. Also, we see this in our WebsLearn team doing project, that we also have this very specific focus on encouraging people to do something with all this knowledge, not just understand and be aware of the situation. And as Sasha also shared in the UK Water Bleeds initiative, have people do things on the ground, collect data, understand the situation, what's going on. But I would be very interested to see also views. Just as we move into the end of the webinar, Sasha, a last word from your side, perhaps.
Gosh, put me on the spot. I suppose I think what you're getting to is the so what of everything. You know, we can educate people, we can engage them, they can collect data, but that so what piece, that moving from communicating and educating to taking action is what's really important here. And I think it's been a really interesting webinar exploring that, how you get to the so what.
Thank you, Sasha. And last word from our dear Mariana from Canada, join us. A last word from her side on that.
Okay, so let's try to think quickly, critically about this science communication and activism. I'm thinking that it is also a matter of a common vocabulary, type of a glossary that should be shared across institutions, across communities of practice, maybe, and also communicated in this way. Yeah.
That's also a great insight, because we also forget sometimes about the power of the words and how the concepts are really perceived by each actor on the ground in the field. So thanks again, Mariana, for spotting this. And thank you all for joining today, our Acting for Water webinar. I kindly ask you to stay tuned, follow us on social media, because the project has more activities and more news to share in the coming months. We have the Citizen Science Project led by university students. Again, I would like to thank Sasha Woods, Katerina Zourou, Mariana Ziku for great presentation and great support in doing all this amazing work about citizen science actions for water. Thank you all for joining today, and I hope you get inspired, and see you in the coming Acting for Water activities and events.